Welcome to her Dungeon Master soundtrack, available by the latest available album by the Dead Writers, who, by the way, don't exist anymore, and I only own half their CDs, and I'm their caretaker. We come to a tome that we must take a look at, but because in level 7 we defeated Pikachu so fast, we had learned of the Elder Scroll that had come from the ground of Moria, from the ring cycle within, and had shaken the very terror off of anyone who'd heard Bruckner and Mahler in rock and roll form. And that's a little hard to do because I'm not Pantera, I'm Dungeon Master, okay? Don't ask me why I fly a Confederate flag. It's a terrible thing to do after saying such horrible, atrocious words in this show. But if you really want horrible, atrocious words, then turn with me to Indag Efter Tonight. That's Dutch, and this is the Dutch Bible, which lapses into any language you want. If you put it under the translator, it will only tell you what I'm saying, and that's exactly what I just read in the book, because it's changing while I talk. And that the pages are reading what I'm saying is exactly what the book is saying too. And that I'm talking to the book. I say lamp. It says Vortpa. That means hasn't been invented yet. The fan either. Burja, Manaitradija. It's in the future that they will invent lamps, and the color fuchsia will come later. But the Vorpa, that could mean the vacuum of everything, not like a vacuum cleaner, would later be named a Vorpa, but a vacuum cleaner with just a vacuous center like Mother Maid on Spaceballs, or one of my other favorite movies we never got to use on Dungeon Master because they would have ripped the copyright from us. But that I own this Dutch Bible, and it's still stained with the young blood's blood, and where the vampire Vlad the Impaler licked it. In those dungeons they were trying to build without telling anyone they'd built 12 of them and don't know where all the files are, my ass. There's only 24 Dead Telluride albums available in hard copy. My ass, I just saw a commercial run on that last one, and that wasn't even that last one. Now what is this? The book is not breaking apart. It is leading me through the pages of the challenge. That this is the Dutch Bible, which actually centers for their journal entries, all writing in Dutch language. That includes Carl Theodor Dreyer's screenplays, which we were looking at Vampire in another episode of something else that had a master to it. You had to have your masters to even want to take it. And then that it was for people with masters, by people with masters. And this is Dungeon Master. Makes you think that there's different kind of masters, aren't there? Well, I certainly have my masters, but I'm not exactly the master, but I am Dungeon Master, so I'm not the master, though. The master is Philip Seymour Hoffman. Everybody knows that. When he plays L. Ron Hubbard, but he doesn't go extreme enough for it to be L. Ron Hubbard. Everybody knows that. And by extreme, I mean extreme skiing, extreme snowboarding, etc., which L. Ron Hubbard never did because he didn't want to break a bone in his hand when he had to write books even longer than the changing Dutch Bible that will take us back to why we'll need tons of Dianetic therapy after looking at these scriptures, because they're backwards. This isn't just their final rites as though the Bible was written in the era of the gunslinger. Thy Vuda Zorg to Blade. That means don't play video games until you're older. Because when you're ready to swing a blade at Zorg, just remember that you're the member of the Zorgians. So live by the sword, die by the sword is what it's saying, but Zorgians are not necessarily sword wielders at all times, as we know this about that planet. But if we check this out over here, Dungeon Master, this is not your typical cleric, but
I just remastered my wizard skills. Yeah, you just built me as a wizard. Your cleric. Sir, all turned into wizards now. Because they read this holy word of the writ of Second Zendog River, Belig Ear Tree, Anger, which means revelation. But that's in the middle of the book, and this is the end of it all right here. It says, O Hijer Fair Gub, from Nabig Mig Bigger verse to Ejal. Okay, why are they saying that in the future the town of Sodom and Gomorrah are going to be destroyed again? Is that some kind of Swedish thing? Do they just chant off curses around solstice time and everybody's heads explode like they do in the movies? Or do they turn to witches and torture the land and demon possess a lot of girls that aren't witches, making them think they are, but anyone demon possessed is a witch is the next chapter. Now, I don't get this either, because this seems like an exorcism. Listen, Bajelli, at league fatidi my bit fervi. That means if the demon's leaving you, a dog will be really close by to bite your leg. If a dog bites your leg, it might get one last chance for you to freak out and invite the demon back in. Do not be afraid. The dog biting your leg is also his trial from being able to see if the spirit is gone, which would be driven out upon dog bite. It's interesting. Well, I don't really want to get bit by a dog much, and I never have because I'm real nice to dogs, but I suppose if I was demon possessed and a dog needed to bite me to get exercised, and I was in Sweden and I only had my Dutch Bible, well, that'd be a new meaning to hear the dog would bit me. But anyways, 10 journeying Christians. If you're journeying with Christians, see this I don't trust because they're all supposed to be Christians, and now they're saying den, gurging, Christians, which means everybody knows that means now that you're journeying with Christians. What are we, 220 pages into the Christian Bible, or was there some Old Testament back there too? Because I don't remember Moses in the middle of, what is this, Colossians, Conbeg, I Advent? It's even Romans. They're talking about the first year of Advent, which is when Constantine took emperor. This is so mixed with Dungeon Master, I need you to take over back in the Christians Just Came About pages, because I didn't think this even backwards had the word Christian until I saw the word Nibin of Defier and all these other Reubens of the Judah tribe that are going to try and convince me. Well, check this out. I'll read this page using straight Thummim translation. I know I shouldn't give away these secrets, but Cube die for Bog. That just means, would Cuba Gooding Jr. die for a bog of ale, which is a big, big beer, Alvor dad, or would he reject that beer because he's a dad? This sounds like it's interesting. Bought lattes, that means coffee befuddles him. Beerton's rad, that means that Tony Hawk is stuck on iced tea. Jujunjiga and is the only one who can have iced tea. This is why we forbid it in our withdrawing culture that can have neither ice nor tea because we can't afford it from China or these other countries that are developing the years these books will be written in the future. Now, that I keep coming in and out of context isn't because I'm doing my teacher mode, professor mode, but Dr. Sheely has joined Dungeon Master's party to say this is all messed up. Because this says, Oganda had wand, I all lam lab, herins daguigas. That just means he's had a really good night and he's completely done with what he's thinking, but he hasn't even crossed the midway point of Dungeon Master 14. And look here, deep within the text, even further down, we come to Dog Debe Najit, which means the cleric becomes a wizard, and that's from Big Nvel Voyager. Means we all gain a level from the experience, and translating this book, Siddhartha, which means nothing to do with Siddhartha, which it sounds like, and that's a false cognate. Lift, tell Ganje Tiger. which means you got to smoke pot until you get tired of ganja, which is never. And I really like this part because it reminds me of a fairy tale that says, Dungeon Master, sei fuged, vet fell be grempel. Once there was a man named Rumpelstiltskin. Ogie Opie, morning believe Meg, tales of an opium eater was discussed in the morning, but can't remember when. Siete always, that's a Latin combo. The only one maybe in the book because it's dierte, which is the same as always. Form and a temper. Here in church we can talk about the tenderlings or interpofudal, which is interview back and forth, to gentlings. The guild of being. Sounds like philosophers might be allowed. We may actually say that Dr. Sheedy could be a slight philosophical hindrance to our party, and we may not invite him at this point on the grounds that he did spill blood of an important literary critic that's been killed at least as many times as he's been mentioned. And let us not forget, these texts have not been altered since the date book. We must go back and search for the date at the beginning, and then we'll catch up on page 660. Just trust me, if we can find a Bible page that gives the access, but it begins with to dream, which is dream, which is what it all begins with before your day begins, which is Genesis. And that the page of Youngblood has a name on it is so terrifying that it might be who lent us the and the thummum, or this could be where to find the yard cells that have the greatest literature of all time, which this is not it because it's basically a smut rag version of the Bible. Solomon's tomb is discussed way too long, and Solomon's orgy is past the cup of death right after the circle of death, which is all hokum because it was taken out of the Kabbalah in the first place. But then we have the real translator. Laugh at big God. Do you dare laugh at the biggest God? For Jenny Dog, do you even think she's bigger than a dog? Steg, this is where it takes befela. I've seen that word in the Quran. It means a student who never learns to do the right thing and befails, but a befailer repeats his fail. And can you repeat your fail if you are of God? Almin gag. Lil big jet fatter God. I know a bigger, huger God. And bar mitzvah. Well, the Jewish God, the Greek God, and the Roman God. Oh, I'm getting the chills from excavating this book from Dungeon Master. And look, names and dates. Are these the men translated the Bible into Dutch? And do one word contain so many that you can get the Old and New Testament, or the Hebrew Bible and New Testament in parts of the Book of the Dead, and one page of the Word of Wisdom of the Mormon Bible, all into this one volume that reads like Dante's Inferno upside down? Is that only because the language is backwards? Or is that just because they crammed the bibliography into a place so tight that seeing the numbers is also like seeing the names in the Bible towards the Old Testament and the Hebrew Bible where they kept track of genealogy? Only look, it's Ringo. Ringo Starr must have been to Holland and signed the sacred pages, because no one else has the name Ringo. But that we only saw it for a few seconds, and now we're suddenly in Job, which is the oldest book. Makes me think we need to go back
to the New Testament, which is going backwards this way, and that's why I saw it end in Revelation, except it began with Genesis. So we must be rotating these parabola patterns, and look, it's more young blood. It's so historical that we have this event happening, and I hope all your demons have left you, everyone playing Dungeon Master, because we're going in. And it's Zalgfeli for Jefu Crifty Labilia. That means it's a letter to D.W. Griffith about his movie Judith of Athulia, which everyone at this time had prophesied would be the first American film, but would never beat the Inferno, which was toted along in this nifty drab of a way to save books from the Western world that were condemned by or against the church regardless. And because the social economy did fund the printing of this book, but because there was no separation of church and state, the law shall be according to the Bible translated therein, which is backwards and forwards of the original one, only too difficult to really know how many words are coming out of so few. And that stuffed into this smallest space, I've seen an entire Holy Bible come to life and add more pages to itself while being read to access the key that it is at the end that we see the page listings. And if we see the page listings, and I didn't mean to get all sullen then, but the CDs seemed to ream at me. Another kind of song would sing, another kind of dance would bring. Hang on. We must have comeuppance with the television set. Where are we, dead Telluritis? Did we not perform your services by being with thee entirely up to you? We seem to have had a closed book, and if we wrap it 3 times, it goes back to forward. And we can still pick it up and travel to the sacred stereo to see if we can translate with the recording of the and Thummim. Why there was a gap in that MP3. I don't know how this disc came to be, but this Bible was found for the movie Orgy of the Damned, but the Bible cursed them all, as they all had shared it, because it had truths of Christianity which are unbearably ethical, that we all live with even in a Machiavellian pride. It's so pagan that it just might work. But we are in a cult beyond that. We love Christ and we love his cup, and we are taken from the cup of the knights of the round. For immortality belonged truly to Ponce de Leon and his fountain of youth, and there are no fountains in Sweden or Denmark. Maybe in Finland. It's too cold to have a fountain. It would turn to ice, and it would be a really nice ice skating rink for a few of the birds that had feet developed for ice skating. Darwin predicted it. And I will read from the final line that has taken its indexes way into the Necronomicon and into the Old Testament and New to combine the final line of the Dutch Bible, which is Gabriel Bit Bilford Angel, which we all know is this book referring to the song Send Me an Angel by Scorpions, but it's in futuristic terms, as though these are all hits that will one day be on YouTube and be completely blasting out of YouTube in no other form. That the form of CD-ROM is becoming old only because my computer could only burn half of my albums, which is now becoming a third. And I'm so behind on projects that I have to hand you over to Dead Telluritis, Alibis and Lying Eyes, the last few songs before the final 5 that Mark wrote for me are on this trickery of a CD. And Mark Frederick would not believe what's in store for him in all of these CDs, but the commercial versions I just found online, which have taken Dungeon Master back to a place.
Keep listening to Lying Eyes and Alibis.
Send me an angel. That
song.
will give us another level up. We'll be at level 47 or level 28 by the end of it. We must now roll the dice and hear one last track and try to avoid a sentimental ending, because we're going to be coming up on some tougher dungeons, and I feel that the Elder Scroll that we saw, the Dutch Bible, the Morrowind of Everville, the ultimate launcher into Skyrim history. And it's just as good as in shape as it was before we knocked it from Youngblood's hands and stormed the castle and came back with this true fountain of youth, this stereo which plays our music as it drizzles from the rain, as it tightens up from the lyric, as everything is challenging, the only playable on streaming media. The last of the Bibles that I could destroy with fake blood. Dungeon Master Dr. Sheely may have better blood than the blood on this tome. And now that we're putting it away and back in the clipper, we must realize that we have beaten a very difficult level, and we couldn't go on long. But I do want to point out one thing, that the Bible in Dutch Denmark, which we assume this is because we see the word Dutch and Denmark, and Dutch is actually Holland and Danish is Denmark, but that we see this Bible written in Danish Dutch is now our best solution, and that the Holy Bible with the Hebrew Bible and the New Testament and the Apocrypha, which has a lot of the early writings of the Necronomicon all the way through, different apocalypses, and Jesus' childhood, where he melts an ice cream shelter just to get it to scoop better. And this is Bafavaganstoya. Everybody knows that Bafavaganstoya in Dutch Danish means Holy Bible, okay? Does it mean Book of Mormon? Well, I heard that the word Mormon translates in Dutch to Holy Bible. So the book of the Holy Bible would be the Book of Mormon. But there's other ways to translate Mormon too, like Holy Book or Manuscript of Holiness or Valuable Script, which really, I'm not even going to do my dishes and send this to all those that got my job at BYU at Wizards of the Coast, man. That's how cool Dr. Sheely is. And by the way, Baffigan Vog means Holy Bible. And that's why when you read any Holy Bible backwards and upside down, it's like reading this one forwards. And that is the Bible of Satan, which have now occurred in all its forms to be manifest in every book imaginable, because Satan is as prevalent as God, and we're always talking about books being God, and this book is God. So lick it and bow before it. Lick, yes, yes. Good night, Dungeon Master fans.